Hey, here we are. Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? Hope you are well. Back with another episode of Schwami Streams. And hopefully we'll have some fun today. Hello out there. And I see some people hosting. Appreciate it. Rich Ross, Bruno. Always appreciate it. Thanks, Bruno. And Dev Talk Show hosting me. Appreciate that. Thank you all. Thank you all. I hope everybody is doing okay. Sorry, I've got a tangled cord here. Hope everybody's doing all right in these strange times. Kev Griffin, hey! How are you, man? Good to see you. Thanks for joining in today. I was on Kevin's stream, I think 2 days ago. I was actually on yesterday, but I didn't chat with him, so he doesn't even know I was there. I don't know if he knows. Freestyle, hello, how are you? Nice to see you this morning. And yeah, it's great to see like other... I like to check out other streamers, and I know other streamers, like, it's nice when they check out here. You felt like someone was watching me. Yeah, I was more like stalking you. Or I think they call it lurking, when you just hang out and don't say anything. And lurkers are welcome here as well. Love when people say hi. Thanks to you guys for saying hi. Love it. But if you're just chilling out and just want to watch, that's cool too. Yeah, Kevin, I popped back in yesterday. Wanted to see if you were still working on that, but was like really busy and didn't mean... oh, you mean my viewers, JK, love them all. Yeah. Thanks, Freestyle, right? Yeah, we love them all. Hey, chatty, unchatty, we're all happy to, it's nice to know that we're just, that we're talking and someone's out there listening, right? Whether they're responding back, someone's listening, and it makes it fun. And so we're going to have some fun today. Before I start, just a quick plug. Yeah, I know. I'm starting off with a plug. Haven't even shown anything. Haven't even done anything. Starting off with a plug. In addition to the great other streamers that are out there, and they can feel free to, if you stream, feel free to post a comment in there and the name of your stream. I don't mind sharing all that. But tonight on the Dev Talk Show, tonight 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time is what it is, EDT, 8:30 p.m., the Dev Talk Show with special guest Statue Korik. And Statue's a local expert on F# and functional programming. He's been preaching about all that kind of stuff for years now. And we wanted to have him come on the Dev Talk Show. The Dev Talk Show is a little different than a lot of other coding streams because it really is more of a talk show. And we do live demos, we do all kinds of stuff like that. But it's a little different than just a typical stream of one person sort of streaming. And that's Rich Ross and Chris Gomez and myself. And we'll have on, and I can put in it's basically like the Dev, let's see, Mixer or Twitch/the Dev Talk Show, right? So that is that's where you'll find us tonight at 8:30. And so Freestyle, you're on in 2 hours, so you're on at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And maybe I'll check it out today and see if I can swing over there. I don't know how everybody does it. I try to pop in on some streams. And, I've said this before, and I always wonder, do you guys like tune out of other things and tune into a stream that you're watching? In other words, like not working and not doing other things and like join the stream? Or do you background watch? And I try to do a mix of both those. And again, me personally... I guess it depends on what I'm working on. If I'm working on something, it's hard for me to like listen in on the background and stuff like that. But I try because I find like I learn something from all these different shows. Freestyle does background while working if during the day, focused at night. Yeah. Well, so that's why we're trying to do the Dev Talk Show at night. Now, again, one person's night is another person's morning. But we're hoping at 8:30 p.m., and we've been starting to get a following on that show. At 8:30 p.m., we're starting to get more and more people watching, which is cool. And one other tip is you can go to Meetup. We actually started a Meetup for the Dev Talk Show, which was a sort of an experiment because we weren't really sure what that was going to do. And I got to tell you, as soon as we put it on Meetup, and it's meetup.com, the Dev Talk Show, but there's like dashes in between each one. It's like the Dev. Let's put this. I'll put it into chat here. Meetup.com/the Dev Talk Show. Right? And so as soon as we did that, we started getting people joining the Meetup and following it. And the Meetup's cool because you can schedule. We have scheduled events once a week, and we have different topics, unlike a lot of other streams. And so we can post those things in there, and people are actually starting to follow it, and it's kind of interesting. Anyway, yeah, I know, freestyle, right? I mean, it's bedtime for the kids. There's always something. We pick a time and we go for it, and that's what we do. Hey, let's get into some coding. So let's go to my desktop, and I think I have it there. Yeah, all right, cool. So here's my solution, and as always, for people that are, let me just check something real quick. And I'm just checking a couple things. Okay, so what I usually do is start off by running the app that we've been building, giving a very brief overview of what the plan is, and then getting into some code. So the app that we're making, this is like the base of, a base sort of library, a base code base. Base code base, how's that? A base code base to do other cool things on. But we need something. We need something to work on at least. And so my plan here is to build up the Schwami Streams. It's loading slowly. The Schwami Streams site. And over here is going to be the archives where we can see the title. And this is very bad right now. But this is where we're going to see the different episodes in the history where you can click on these and go back to YouTube and see the archives. Over here are just 3 links for the different platforms that I stream on. And what will happen is eventually, once I go live, it's going to pick up like one of the streams and and sort of embed it right in here. And maybe the most recent episode, if we're not on the air, of YouTube will be right here. A couple things like that. It's nothing fancy, but what this will do is give me the ability to then take the code that's in there and say, okay, I want to build a Blazor application. I want to build an Angular application or a React application or any of those things, and put them and have the code to work with, right? And so that's the gist of it. The only other feature that's in here now, and I did a little work off stream because I was really getting frustrated at the pace that I can get by in an hour of streaming. And so I cleaned up a little bit of stuff and I added like this login button. It really wasn't a login button. This uses Azure Active Directory authentication. And really the only person that can log in is me. And so when I go to log in, it should auto log me in and it tells me I'm logged in. And now I have this manage episodes button where I can see a list of episodes. Now the astute observer would note that there is no longer an episode that talks about when Freestyle mentioned something. What was it that he mentioned? He's going to remind me. I don't know. It was, oh wait, I know what it is. It was about async versus, he had a good word for it. Anyway, I had to delete the thing. I had to kill the database. Blocking, thanks, blocking. I'm not going to go into that whole thing again, but I'll put it up in the description once we get that. So maybe... I was having problems in last show with the DAC pack and the deployment of the DAC pack. And quite frankly, I got kind of frustrated. The whole point is that this database, I have a database project here. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Oh, I broke one of my rules. I didn't follow my setup instructions. Hang on. My setup instructions tell me, but I was kind of eating lunch and I didn't get to do it. So tell me to turn on Zoom It and tell me to turn on Karnak, which I didn't do. Okay, so now I can I'm going to zoom it over here. So I've got this database project, right? And the whole idea is to have the database deployments work really seamlessly in, yeah, I am a rookie. I am a rookie. I am a novice. Kev, thanks for feeding into my imposter syndrome. I appreciate that. I know you're kidding, but yeah, you're right. Anyway, the database project is, hey, D&I Streams here. Hello. Thanks for joining. Thanks for coming in today. Appreciate it. Anyway, the database project DACPack stuff was not working out well at all, and I was having some problems with updating like a table in here. And the whole idea here is, if you're new to this, if you hadn't seen it before, is that the database structures are built in to as code, right? They're saved as files in here. They're source controlled. And then when I do my deployment, it runs the DACPack. It builds this thing, and then it installs this on the server. And was having some problems changing out like allow nulls and stuff like that. And I decided to kill the entire database, build it again without needing to upgrade it. Not build it again, but really deploy it again so it would be clean and I wouldn't have to deal with those things. And I decided that in my other spare time, yes, other spare time. Who's got more spare time? I don't. But actually, I'm doing this for work too. DACPacks are something I'm really trying to dig into for work. So I decided, don't do that live on the stream, because like a lot of you guys on your streams spend a lot of time doing like research and stuff like that. And I cannot continue to try and fail over and over again on the stream. It really just depresses me, and I don't mind failing a little bit, lots. Believe me, I fail plenty of times on here, but I can't just stream and just be like, I don't know how to make this work. It was really frustrating to me. So I decided to just take that off. Yeah, I know, D&I stream, nothing wrong with failing, but I have a hard time failing completely in front of everybody. I'll stick with my little failures, and we'll enjoy those. And anyway, so the point is, I'm sort of doing like a spike, if you want to call it that, on learning more about why the DACPack wasn't working. And I did find some articles that helped, but I wanted to move on. I wanted to move on from that. And so I'm continuing to fail. I'm just not failing as much and wasting everyone else's time. I know it's not a waste. I know. I get it. I get it all. But anyway, so what I did is I redeployed the DACPack with a clean database. And what I wanted to do now is really, let me see. What I want to do now, if I go back to the page, is, and by the way, thanks for the encouragement on that kind of stuff. I appreciate it. What I want to do now is get this manage episodes working a little better. I think right now, if you create one, the air date doesn't really go into the database, the archive, the tags, none of that stuff's working. So that's what I want to work on, building a little search functionality in very rough. It all goes through the Backend project. The Backend project, I'm doing double things here. So since the front end right now is an MVC application, which is, to me, the easiest way to just get started. Again, I said this is supposed to be just building a code base. So I've got these controllers that have access to my orchestrator and my backend logic, right? Episode history orchestrator. At the same time, though, I'm exposing all of the logic through an API, which also has, also has an episode controller. The idea here, the idea here is that by doing this API will enable me to build any kind of UI I want over here. And anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So right now, I believe if I go to my orchestrator, let's stop this thing. And I've got all my crazy ways of organizing things in here that work pretty well for me. And I've talked about that before on the stream. My episode history orchestrator is like my main, logic a controller. It controls the flow of the logic and all the little mini single responsibility things. And so if I have, let's do add episode async. Add episode async. It takes an episode DTO, and the episode DTO should be opening, and it's not. There we go. So it takes the title, the description, the tags, the original air date, and an archive URL. But I don't think they go. I don't think they go anywhere yet from here. I think it sort of ends here. Why do I call them orchestrators? DNI Stream wants to know. Aren't they repositories? No, they are not. So the way I write applications, and different things work for different people. This is a pattern that works pretty well for me. Is in something like a controller or in something like an API, right? Some kind of front-end-ish thing. I think that's a good name for them. So in my, let's say, home controller here, when I go to my home page and I want to see a list of episodes, I call the episode history orchestrator. The episode history orchestrator's job is to do all of the business logic for me, okay? But we follow a single responsibility principle as best we can, and we try to be solid as best we can. And so it takes an argument, and when we go into this thing, we take a look at the orchestrator and the get history. Where was it? Let's look at the one we were just talking about. Oh my. Get history async. Okay. Oh, I don't know why I have some white space at the top here. So controller calls service, calls repos, data layer. Pretty much that's the way it is, right? So this is the orchestrator. The orchestrator is like the service in a very like SOA-ish kind of way. We have the I'm just sorry, I just got caught and looked at the stream, and the delay freaked me out because I was not at, don't worry. So the orchestrator does stuff like takes the arguments that got passed in and validates them. Okay. And then it gets the episodes from what I call a data service, and the data service will then call a repository and things like that. And then when those data comes back, we then call the converter, and there's a little bit of looping logic. And so these are orchestrators. That's the name I like to use. And you're right. I agree, DNI Stream, that as long as you're consistent, naming doesn't really matter. I came up with something that works for me. That's sort of a quick overview of that kind of stuff. So we're doing add episode. And so when I add an episode, it takes that episode, it takes a DTO, an add episode DTO. Naming is sort of specific because it has a single responsibility. It's a DTO that's only used when adding an episode. And then what happens here somewhere, I guess, is when I convert that episode history, when I convert that episode into a domain object using that's the thing that will go into the database, I probably don't grab the extra fields because I didn't need to in the beginning, and now I'm expanding. So the original implementation just had a title and details, and now I want to make sure my episode can support all those things. And I had them in there because I kind of knew I was going to do it. I know, commenting code and leaving it in there, but let's just uncomment these three because those are the three I'm going to work on next. So now my domain object that really maps into entity framework, right, has these three fields. I then have to go back to, I guess I should have left that over here. I didn't pin it because I didn't change it. So now I'll change this and I'll say the episode, let's say air date equals DTO.air date, original air date. Okay, I guess that's what I called it. I sometimes inconsistent with my naming. Yes, that's right. The whole point is that this all is very testable. And even in simple situations like this, I try to build things out in the structure that I like, in the patterns that I like, and it all sort of makes sense to me. And other developers have seemed to agree to some point that they agree with mine. You're not using an extension method. Good. I'm not a big fan. It's an interesting question or point you make about extension methods. Lately, I see developers building extension methods on their own classes when an extension method isn't really needed. And I think, first of all, just put a regular method on there. I use extension methods occasionally. Extension all the things? I don't know if that's a sarcasm or if that's what you like. Freestyle. So let me know if you're promoting that or you're sort of mocking that. I don't like to put extension methods on everything. I feel like there's a place for it. Seriously, okay. That's cool. I'd like to see how you use that. I'll have to tune in on your stream and check that out. I'm going to keep going with this. Let's see, because I want to get something done today. How do I balance like hanging out and talking with you guys, which is fun, and let's put tags in here. Let's do to.tags. You have there is a mapper. I tend to use generics to make an interface like iMapper and create custom mappers from that. I've done that, and I'm glad you mentioned AutoMapper, DNI stream. AutoMapper is really scary to me because as soon as you put AutoMapper in, which is really a good product, but it gets misused so much that people start mapping everything, and then I find refactoring and testing really hard. And so I don't like AutoMapper. I do like the idea of using a mapper. I call them converters. That's just the reason I don't use the word mapper is exactly what we're talking about right now. As soon as people see mapper, they tend to go like, oh yeah, you use AutoMapper. And I'm like, no, I don't. And again, I'm not against AutoMapper when used correctly. But the point is, I call them converters for that reason, right? Because I don't want it to be confused. Same thing, right? It's just a word. Episode dot. The other thing I was adding was archive URL equals DTO dot archive URL. And by simply putting these into here, they will then. Freestyle's never heard of AutoMapper. AutoMapper is a pretty cool product. We could take a quick look. I don't mind. I won't get anything done today. We're just going to have fun and learn stuff, right? It's cool if we all are learning stuff. And maybe it's not that important how much I get done on this silly little project anyway. AutoMapper. I don't even know if it's been updated, how much for like .NET Core and stuff like that. But AutoMapper is, let's see. I was looking to see. Yeah, so Jimmy Bogart, I actually never know how to pronounce his name, who's a really good guy, really smart guy, created this. And I've met him and I've talked to him about this. And he's got some frustration with AutoMapper getting bad mouth, actually. And I shouldn't speak for him too much, but I think his point was that he reads these blog posts about people trashing AutoMapper sometimes, and he's like, well, that's because I'm looking at your blog post and you're using it for things it was not intended to be used for. It was made for simple mapping of things like that. And people really push it and push it and push it. It's really good for what it does out of the box, which is a way to map an object that looks like another object. And especially in my case, when I have an add episode DTO and I have an episode, if they have these same properties, it sort of will do this for you, right? And if the fields don't match up, like here I called it original air date and here I called it air date, you can simply map those fields pretty easily. And it's really good for certain things like this. Anyway, good product, like all tools, right? We have the tools, we have the power, we should use them wisely and use them carefully, right? And if you're going to use AutoMapper, I would suggest trying to find some good articles about the best practices with AutoMapper. And anyway, so this is my simple little converter. Now, this converter is what I call single responsibility. Its single responsibility is to convert episodes. Sometimes I call them episode history. I'm in the process of renaming that and getting rid of the word history. They're just episodes. But the point is, yes, I have more than one method in here. And that's sort of to keep me sane, but it's still small enough that it's manageable. Each method has a single responsibility with no side effects. They're all public. And they are sort of grouped together as that this episode converter only maps episodes and doesn't just map everything. Anyway, that's sort of my take on single responsibility. I hope that works for you. If not, well, I guess I'm typing the code. I get to do what I want, right? So, all right, so I've done that. And so if I did that, let's take a look at where it goes from here. So the episode, add episode, since I remapped it, let's go back to the orchestrator. So it's going to get mapped and it's going to get added. And when I add it, I go to my data service, which in this case doesn't do anything except call the repository. And there's a reason for that, and it's okay. It's an extra layer. And in other cases, you can see there's some additional code in here and stuff like that. But the data service calls the repository, and the repository, I believe, is not yet generic because I'm trying to build this application from scratch, and I didn't need a generic repository with just one class in it. But this should add it. And since there's nothing else that cares about the fields, and the fields are in the database, I think this is just going to work. So to test this, the UI doesn't support this yet. What I should do is go to my unit tests. Speaking of testing, and if I go to my episode history converter tests, and I have, I don't have any tests. Oh, look at that. So my episode history converter has a method called toDomain, which has no tests yet. Fail. Major fail. Yeah. Oh, boy. Well, we're going to fix that now. So everyone has their own way of, I think, organizing unit tests and stuff like that. What I do is I create a folder for the class. In this case, episode... yeah, thanks, Kev. It compiles. Well, let's just double check. Hang on. I think it should build. And so we're going to go with a win right there. Build succeeded. Let's see. Build succeeded. Thank you very much. Ship it. Right? So I am not doing TDD. I am focused on testing, but I'm not doing TDD. I don't do test first, although I do sometimes, but that's not really my thing. So anyway, I have this folder where I put all my episode history converter tests, all the tests in there. And then what I do is I make a file, a class for each method. So I'm going to make a class called toDomain. And this is, again, something that works for me. And TTD is a life choice. It is. I'm not a bad tester, but I'm not as disciplined enough always to do tests first, but I'm doing my tests, so you got to give me props there. So I would then basically say that this is, here's the other one, and I'm using XUnit, so I'll put the fact attribute on there, right? And I'll say fact. Okay. Oh, no, this is a class. This doesn't get a fact. And I'll make a test, and I'll say, so I'm trying to change my pattern of the test name. So for now, I'm just going to call this test. Don't worry. I'm just writing code here. Test. Okay, and this is going to be my test. Now, what I'm trying to do is name these things in more of like I think it's a BDD kind of pattern. And I'll say sort of like, given a domain object, then all fields are mapped. And this is a little gray. I probably could have a test that says given a domain object with title, then title is mapped, right? That I think I could be very specific like that. But that just feels a little bit like overkill to me right now. So I'm going to say given, or how about given a domain object? Yeah, all right, let's just go with this for now. So no, actually this is not true. This is toDomain. So I'll say given a add episode DTO, given an add episode DTO, then all fields are mapped to a domain object. Now, wordy, I don't know, but does it matter? Like, who cares, right? DNI says, I do it too, but I tend to leave them as you are, essentially just writing the same code as your implementation, but in your test. Yeah, which is a little, in some ways lame, but I believe in testing, and I believe that by putting in something like add episode DTO, let's just stub this out here, right? New add episode DTO. And then I'm going to say I need to get a thing to test. And so that's going to be it's going to be called an episode history converter. And I'll call it SUT for system under test. New. I see some comments coming in. I'm going to take a look in a second. And here I'm going to say to domain. Let's just say essentially it's going to look like this, right? And I'll have some asserts down here. Okay, let's see. Assert equals, yeah. As long as you're mocking the mapper, then that's good enough for me. Right. Well, so this is the mapper, as you will, and it is an interface. The converter is an interface right here. And so when I use it, and when I write tests on my orchestrator, I mock it out and everything tests really nicely and finely. And so it works out pretty well from that. So anyway, let's put some properties into this thing. I probably could do auto properties, whatever, but let's just say, let's see, we'll start with title, and I'll just say equals title. And this is always kind of lame testing to me, but it does. The problem is in my test name, if I'm going to really go, hey, DNI, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. And stop distracting me. No, it's always welcome. And I'll stop by your stream again soon. Thanks. The problem here, I think, is a little bit in my naming because it says all fields are mapped, right? And so how do I know all fields are mapped if we add a new field? And that is the problem. And that's where I think there's a way to do some reflection probably and make sure that all public properties have been moved into the domain. That would be a really cool test. But anyway, let's just keep going for now. And maybe we could figure out a way to do that. That would be cool. Has anyone tried doing that? Do you get what I'm saying here? If I was to say, do something like down here in the asserts, use reflection to get all public properties of the DTO, right? And do reflection to get all public properties of the domain object, right? Then compare. What would be interesting there to me is that if I came along and added a new field later over here in my episode or something like that, right? This test would fail because the reflection would sort of make sure that the word all fields or all properties, right? Maybe it's not fields if you want to be specific, right? All properties, something like that. So this would be cool. And I bet that wouldn't be that hard to write a little like helper that did like an assert, right? Like some kind of assert. That would be cool. Oh man, I'm going to write that in my notes. Put it in my notes. Topics. Let's see. Write a test assertion helper that compares to objects using reflection to make sure all properties are mapped. Something like that. I think it could be done. Probably not that hard. First off, do I have a project for you? What's the project, Freestyle? You got an idea? Let's see. Anyway, let's keep going with this. What other properties do I have in here? Because it's already 12:36, but I'm writing tests and I'm having fun. And let's do, I could have made this one of those auto implemented things that would then make this easier for me, wouldn't it? Description, tags. I'll just put this in here for now. And then what I need to do is go to my validator. I have a validator, and I really want to validate that the archive URL is, and that'll be a little bit more fun here, is a valid URL, and that the date, where's the date? Where's air date? Original air date equals, now this is a date. All right, so I'll say, doesn't really matter what it is. I can say 2020-1-1, whatever. Doesn't matter what that is. I gotta head out too. Hey, Kev, thanks for coming by. Hopefully I'll see you soon. And don't forget the Dev Talk Show tonight at 8:30 p.m. Stop by for some fun with functional coding and F# with Statue Couric. If you are just tuning in now and you didn't know about that, 8:30 p.m. on Wednesdays is the Dev Talk Show. And, check that out too. That's the Dev Talk Show on Mixer and Twitch. We're on YouTube too, video.thedevtalkshow.com. Anyway, one more thing, 8:30, you got it, thanks. And also, hey, if you're watching me, feel free to give me the subscribe or follow on Mixer and Twitch, and subscribe on YouTube, and appreciate the love on all that kind of stuff. So here's my test. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The DTO I don't think has an ID property, so I think that's the properties I have. DTO.id, right? DTO doesn't have the ID. And maybe it should. I haven't decided yet. So let's do this. Now let's compare. So we did that, and we're going to get the var domain equals this. GitHub.com dev space Huntsville test helpers. You got something, huh? All right, let's check this out. I'll check this out. I trust your URL too, by the way. I appreciate your not putting it as a URL, but I trust you. Let's see. I am interested. GitHub.com. Object extensions. It's probably in here, right? I didn't have, wait, was there a, there's not a read, oh, maybe I'm just curious to see if there's like a readme. Something here, not much. Okay. So, under helpers, lots of crazy reflection test type stuff. Cool, right? So I wonder, well, this is way deeper, I think. This is probably standard test, random entity, random extensions, standard tests, copy constructor, all with. So this is a internal method, right? This is an internal class, so this must be bubbled up through other methods, I would assume, that get exposed like up through some of these other things. So I want to dig into this and look into this, but I think this is probably the idea of what I was trying to get to. Interesting. Oh, so this is dev space Huntsville. This is like their repo, and these are the tests they write. So this isn't a library. I didn't even look at what the URL was. This isn't a library, but this could easily be turned into some kind of reusable library of extension methods or asserts that could get used. I'm gonna come back and take a look at this. Thanks, Freestyle. Appreciate that. All right, so yeah, time. Well, Freestyle, is this are you Huntsville Dev Space Huntsville? Is that your conference? Maybe it is. Maybe that's what you're saying there. Yeah, feel free to plug it if you'd like. Huntsville Dev Space. I don't know if you have an event coming up soon, but feel free to plug it along here. Happy to support all these other events. All right, so now I've got this thing, and I don't remember if this... I want to look again. I'm a little... Let's see, when's the last time I've been in here? So let's look at NuGet packages. because I don't remember. Oh, I am using fluent assertions. Great, because I like fluent assertions. So let's do using fluent assertions. I think that's all I need. So now I can say, let's see, domain should, oh, I'm rusty with this, should be, okay. I like this fluent assertions, and if you haven't seen this is a great library. Actually, I'm going to do domain.title. This is all based on extension methods here. Title.should be, and I can say DTO.title. Okay. Oh, and let's do this. Let's turn on live unit testing, which is awesome. I think there was a start button, but I'll just press in here and do it. If you haven't used live unit testing, I really dig it. I find it takes a while to fire up. Oh, September 10th and 11th. We hope. Yeah, I hear you. I've got an event scheduled for October, and I'm a little even nervous about that. But check it out. Anyone who's out there, it's called, I guess it's called DevSpace Huntsville. Is September 10th and 11th. Good luck. Okay, so you can see my tests. Well, they haven't run because I forgot to put the fact attribute on here. And let's see if my live testing works. Oh, yeah, I need to add my using XUnit. And let's see, look at that. So the test already ran, okay? And if I was to do something like description, just so we know it works, the test should fail, and we're using our nice fluent assertions in there. Okay, great. So let's, I don't know, I'm just gonna kind of do a bunch of these, copy and paste unit testing. Let's see, title, description, why is this? Just doesn't have a description, what does it have? Domain dot, say what? Details. Oh my God, I named it. Ugh. Well, I don't like that at all. All right, the test fails, and that's good. I'm going to refactor that, and let's just at least do that. So I guess in my little mapper, I didn't even notice in my episode history converter, uh-oh, what? Episode details. Oh, well, what is it? This is not the right converter. Domain, oh, it is. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, this is left over from before, so I didn't touch that today. I'm going to have to make a note to refactor that. I hate when I don't get these fields that match up in names, even when they should. Okay, so let's put archive URL and tags and tags. And what else do I need? Original air date. And in that one, it's just air date, I think, which is another. Oh, this is the one that has original air date. Sorry, this one has air date. And that's another thing that I need to refactor and clean that up. But that should work. And that's pretty good. The other thing I need to do in order to start making this feature work is go back to my episode orchestrator and look at my validator. I have a validator, single responsibility. And its job is, and you can see I didn't validate a lot because there wasn't a lot to validate. The title was required. It was about the only rule I had. The way this validator works is it just returns a list of strings that will give us error messages. And I can make that more robust in the future if I want to, but for now, that's all I really need. So let's go in and put in some other rules. Well, you know what? Let's back that up. I know I need one that says the date. If I'm putting in an air date, well, I'm going to say that the date can't be greater than today. Because if I'm adding this is just to prevent like a problem. It should be a previous date. And maybe it doesn't really matter, but I like to have some validation rules in here. If nothing more than to prove the point. And so let's just say that DTO dot original air date is greater than. Okay, now here's a problem I'm going to have. What I'd like to do is datetime.now, right? Meaning that no, sorry, is less than, because it would have had to have been, oh, sorry. It has to be, it has to have been aired in the past, right? If I'm entering it, I would have had to have aired it, unless I'm putting these things in future-wise, but play along, okay? Let's just play along. So date time is going to give me a problem because this test will not be an easy test based on this property, this static property now, which will never be the same every time I run this test. And so I usually have something called I usually have like some testing helpers. And I usually bring them in from libraries that I've used, but in this case, I'm trying to build this all from scratch and not use any legacy like code of mine. So to do that, what I usually do is put in an interface. Well, in this case, this is just the validator, so it doesn't really matter. But the validator is going to be hard to test. It's going to be hard to test this thing, right? So what I usually do, so where am I? I'm up here in Backend. I think I'm just going to put it in like a folder. I don't know. I think I'm just going to make a folder called like helpers or something like that. I'll probably think about a better place for this later. Helpers. Okay. And in here, I'm going to put in a new class, and I tend to call it iCalendar because date time is just too weird. I don't know. I just came up with this calendar. How do you spell calendar? Why does that look weird to me? Calendar. You ever do that? I'm like blanking out on how to spell an easy word. I'm like, calendar. Calendar. It is calendar. Why does that look weird to me? All right, good. iCalendar. And, well, I guess I can make it an interface. iCalendar.cs. Okay, fine. And it's going to have a property called date time now get set. Okay, and so we have this thing that has a now, and why don't I usually put some other helpers in here, but I think it'll be okay. So then what I'm going to do is in this interface, the validator, I'm going to have a private, how to push and pull from terminal. 1.7 WANs, but new Windows terminal. Sorry, just saw this comment here from WAN 7. I'm sure there's a way to say that. I wonder if there's a way to say it. WAN 7id. I don't know. How to push and pull from terminal. I don't know what you're asking. I'm sorry. Wanted. Wanted. Okay, cool. Wanted. How are you, Wanted? I'm not sure what you're asking. How to push and pull from terminal to Git. Well, I'm using Visual Studio to push and pull from terminal, to push and pull. So I would actually use the built-in tools here. However, it's still pretty easy to go to a command line. And if I, let's say, open up a command line here, or a terminal, I could, oh, wow, that's small and hard to read. Why is that so small? Is there a way to zoom? I don't know what that's doing. That's weird. I could use the new terminal. Hey, let's try that. Have you guys tried the new terminal? I don't even know if I have the new terminal. Let's see, what do I have here? I also have like a couple different things like code. I'm going to use code because it'll be easier to, because the font was just really bad on that. I don't know why. So this is a terminal here. Okay. Whoop. And if you have Git installed, Give it a second. What's it doing? Oh my gosh. Let's just go over here. So I'm in the folder that I want to be. Actually, I think I want to go back a level here. And, well, if I don't have this code at all, I would go back to the place where I want to put the repo in my repos folder, and I would say something like git clone, okay? And then I would go to the repo, and, well, this is a repo. This is not my repo, but I happen to be here. So I could go up to the root here, and let's go to this thing here. I should have like a clone. So that, you go to a repo in GitHub or something like that, you'll find like a clone URL, and I could take this URL, and I'm not going to do this because I don't want to put this repo in this particular spot, but I could say clone, and if I wanted to name the folder, I could say like, put it in the foo folder or something like that. And if I did that, I would then have the code. And that should get you started on the basics. There's also commands like push and pull to get changes and to commit your own changes and things like that. And I hope that helps there, Wanted, to get you started with Git. Very simple way to get the code from a terminal or a terminal. This happens to be one of many terminals that you can have access to. Okay, let's see. So what I was saying is I'm going to create a private read-only I calendar, and I'll call it calendar. Okay, for why not call it that? Great, Wanted. You're welcome. Hope that helped. Come back again. If thanks for watching the show. I hope you stick around for a little while and learn some other stuff and enjoy. Okay, so I've got this calendar. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that with with calendar.now. Okay, and this calendar.now has to be implemented somehow. So what I need to do is I'm going to implement it right in this folder here. It's just fine for now. Public class, I'll call it calendar because I just don't want to call it date time. It just sort of helps me know that it's something different, even though I'm just sort of mocking this thing out. iCalendar. Okay. And then I can implement iCalendar. And, well, I don't really like that. So why don't I say public now get now. I don't usually do this too often, honestly. Let's see. What do? I do now. Public. Oh, I forgot date time. Date time. No, public. Yeah, it's going to return a date time. It's going to be called now, and it's going to have a get, and the get is going to return date time dot now. And so the whole point of this thing isn't really to do much at all. Right? I don't even know if I need a setter on here. Let's maybe take that off. So now, when I inject in my calendar, when I call this method called now, I will get datetime.now, which is what I want to have happen when I validate. However, when I go down and write my unit tests on this method, I can mock out what calendar now returns. And so let's do this. So let's just say date. How about air date must be in the past. All right, and I'm going to quickly make a unit test for this. And then we can see how this works, right? And how this whole calendar thing comes in handy. So let's go back to my test project. And under mini and under validators, we have a get history validator. That's not what we want. We want an add episode DTO validator. because its job is to validate a thing called an add episode DTO. So I'm going to make a folder down here. Sorry, what am I looking for? New folder. Call it tests. And then in here, I'm going to have something called validate. All right. And let's just go into here and say validate.cs. Okay. So now I'm in this validate, and what I want to do is I'm going to do public void. This is going to be my test, and I'm going to say air date must be given an air date in the future, then this is tough for me. Writing these test names is like tough, but what I find is that if I write this test name correctly, it gets me really specific, and writing the test is easier for me. At least that's been my experience. Hang on a sec here, and hang on a sec. Just checking some stuff. Okay. All right. So then returns failed message or something like that. I don't know. I'll clean that up a little bit, but let's just go with that. Okay. And then let's make this a test. I'm going to say fact because I'm using XUnit, and I need to use XUnit, and let's add in fluent assertions too, using fluent assertions. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say add episode DTO, DTO equals new, add episode DTO, and I'm going to say add episode DTO validator SUT system under test equals new add episode validator. Okay, and I'm going to say SUT dot validate, and I'll pass the DTO into it. Okay, now it's kind of set up, and it's going to return our messages or something like that. What does this thing return? Returns a list of strings. I'll say, yeah, that's fine. Now, why is it failing? It shouldn't be failing. Wonder if it's failing because it can't. Oh, hang on. The calendar, it's failing because I never did anything with calendar here. Okay, so let's create a constructor. And let's say I want to take calendar, and okay. So what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Public add episode validator. What did I do? It says inconsistent accessibility. Parameter iCalendar is less accessible. Yeah, but it's oh, I know why. It's not a public interface. Sorry. All right. So, and now this thing won't work unless I pass in a mock for it to validate against, right? So let's create a mock. Do I have mock in here? Using mock. I think that's all I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, and I'm just about out of time here. I'm going to create a mock of today's date. Mock iCalendar. This is pretty easy to do, by the way. Mock calendar, calendar. equals new mock of calendar. Okay, so now I have this mock that's going to behave any way I want, calendar, and I'm going to pass it into the constructor because the constructor needs it. Okay, but I can't just pass it in. I have to pass in the object because mock is like a tool and the object is the return. And now the test is actually passing because we haven't asserted anything yet. Okay, and let's see what happens if we try to assert something. So let's say that the DTO.original air date equals new date time, and let's say the user puts in 2020, February 1st, right? Now, how do I test that that is accurate? Well, the datetime.now method or has to be mocked out, the now method. So if I say something like calendar, calendar.setup, and I say, what do I want to set up? I want to set up the now property, now, right? And I'm going to say dot returns, and I'm going to pick a date that I want it to do, right? So I'm going to say that this is going to return, and I'll say okay, -1. Now maybe it would make more sense if I Milliardo, read that mocking is bad. Well, I don't know. I mean, if you're mocking another person, I guess that's bad. Wah, wah, wah. That's my sad attempt at humor there. I don't know why mocking is bad. Mocking is a great tool, in my experience, to help with unit tests. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a way to test this value and make sure that the right values appear in the right places. I don't know if I said that right, but so the point here is that I've got the original air date, which is February 1st. In this case, now is going to return a day before February 1st, meaning that the date is in the future. Now, the test hasn't failed, which means I did something wrong. So calendar set up now. Did I? What did I do wrong there? If original air date, oh, I know. I didn't assert anything. So of course it's working fine. So what if I say something like messages dot should, no, fluent assertions? I thought I put, what's this? Communication utilities. Here's fluent assertions. Messages, sorry. Messages dot should include or contain, and it wants a, I think I can just pass in a string into here. Let's see if that, okay. So that's going to fail, which is fine because it doesn't. Now let's go back over and get this string. And we're going to say that air date must be in the past. Come on, run the test. It's not working. So messages should contain. So when I, oh boy, what did I do wrong? Let's see. Sometimes I do these backwards. So I said that the now returns air date minus days is 1. Passed the calendar. I set it up. I passed it into here. I validated it. And maybe return results if original air date is less than, well, that's wrong. It is. It's got to be greater than. If it's greater than the now, then the air date must be in the past. And look at that. Not only did the test work, the test helped me solve a problem in my code. That is like the perfect scenario. That is exactly what I wanted to have happen, is that the testing found a bug in my code. If I didn't write this test, when I went to run it, it would have been looking for a date in the future. And unless I got both ends of it backwards, everything is good. So I can write a complementary test right now quickly, and then I'm going to check in my code. Given an air date in the past, then returns, this is the part I never get, like no message, returns no message maybe, so I'll make it a date in the future, and I'll say I think I can do this, should be empty. This is where this Fluent Assertions library really comes in handy. It makes it easy. And by simply changing that one value, come on. Well, I know why. It's not empty because my test is still failing because I have this other rule about the title. So there's a couple ways I could do this. I could add a title in here, or I could just simply say should not contain this message, meaning I don't care if it contains any other messages, should not contain that message. And that makes my test a little cleaner because I don't have to worry about what other validations there might be in there. So, Miliardo, love to hear why mocking is bad, but I don't know. I've always had it be helpful to me. I don't know. So, let's leave it at that for today. So tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time is the Dev Talk Show. Hope you'll come to mixer.com or twitch.tv/the Dev Talk Show and join us with special guest Statu Korik talking about, we'll be talking about functional programming at F#. I'm saying this all while I check in my code here. Added additional fields and validation and tests. I hope if you're joining me for the first time and you're not a follower, please on Mixer or Twitch, give me a follow. If you're here looking at these archives, feel free to subscribe on YouTube. I'd appreciate it. Thanks everybody for the comments today and the questions. We had a really nice interactive conversation today that I enjoyed. I got some coding done. Try to keep these to about an hour. And so we're a little over an hour. I feel that's a good time to call it. I got some work done. Tests pass. Checked in my code. And yes, thank you very much for the applause. And I hope to see you again back on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Daylight Time or Eastern Standard Time, whichever one it happens to be. I'm around streaming here. Shwami streams Wednesdays at noon. Thanks so much for your time. Have a great day. Stay safe. Stay isolated. Stay home. And see you soon on the internet.